I call to order our June 12th City Council workshop. It's 5 p.m. on the nose. And we have some really fun stuff going on today. First item on the agenda is the Civic Leadership Academy presentation. And Assistant City Manager Prosser is going to lead us off and give us introductions. And how's it going to go today?
And I'm gonna introduce the group and let them present their report. So council knows, but for those in the room that don't know, this is the first cohort of the Civic Leadership Academy, which was charged with addressing the question, how can the City of Sisters improve community engagement and outreach? And this group of 10 took 6 weeks to research and learn some new leadership skills and put together a report that they're going to present tonight, helping guide the council and staff on how we can improve our engagement and our outreach. There's a couple people that I'd like to thank for making this possible. The first is the Ford Family Foundation, who gave the city a $20,000 grant to help fund 2 years of this academy. So this was the first cohort. There'll be another one in the spring of 2025. And then also a thank you to the Roundhouse Foundation. We partnered with C4C on this endeavor, and they received a grant for, I believe, $6,000 to help us in this process as well. So thank you to both of those groups that made this possible for us. I want to also acknowledge that Portland State University and the Hatfield School of Government, I'm going to actually turn and have this group, Steve starting, introduce themselves, who led this program for us.
Yes, hello. I've met most of you. I'm Steve Greenwood from Portland State University's National Policy Consent. And it has been a pleasure for me to be involved with this group of people and with all of you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody. This is Nusrat Ahmed. I work with the STAVE at Portland State University with National Policy Consensus Centers. I'm a project manager over there. So nice to know the group and working with all of you. You too.
Hi, I'm Mary Orton. I'm actually local here in Sisters. Delighted to be a part of the team this spring. Thank you.
And I'll also have the folks from C4C that were a huge part of this introduce themselves as well.
Hello, everyone looks familiar up there. I'm Sarah McDougall. I'm the board president for Citizens for Community, and I am so excited about this. This is a team of top-notch locals who have, I don't know, I'm excited to see all of these people lifted up in our community and given the opportunity to let their talent shine. And I'm really excited to see this report. So.
Good evening. I'm Jane Paxson. I'm the current vice president at C4C. I've been working with Carrie on this project for a couple of years, and it's really exciting to see it come to fruition and to work with this group of people. It really has been a pleasure, and it's really great to see how they collaborated with each other. So another topic.
Howdy, Kellen Klein, Executive Director of C4C. Like everyone else has said, it's just been an honor to be supporting this group and to be collaborating with Carrie and all of y'all to make this a success. This has been a really effective partnership between the city, C4C, and NPCC. I know we've all really enjoyed working together, excited to keep this going and to help more people get engaged in local decision-making and community engagement here in Sisters. So thanks so much for your support.
So I will turn it over to our group of presenters and let you guys decide how you'd like to introduce your group. I'll leave this with you if you want to just turn it on, if you're going to pass it behind to folks to talk at any point.
Thanks, Carrie. I don't think I need the mic. I'll start sharing the screen.
Yeah, just make sure you're talking into the microphone because this is being recorded and that's where we really need the good audio. So thank you.
All right. Good evening, Council. My name is Abi. I will be presenting today along with my partner Cheryl and Spencer, and we're presenting on behalf of the larger team that's behind me, which are 2024 cohort members. Anna, can you please? Yeah. Anna. Strong start.
Can only get better.
To be fair, everyone has trouble with my name as well, so. Blake. Cheryl, Eric. Hannah. Marina. Molly. Spencer and Steve. All right. So our charge for the cohort was to look into how the city can improve its community engagement and outreach. And we submitted a 27-page detailed report to the city, but today we'll cover the highlights of that report. The way we went about this, our methodology, basically research key facts, identify, interview stakeholders. We interviewed about 30 people and asked critical questions. From that, we distilled down to 5 major themes. Number 1, identifying the key stakeholders. Number 2, analyzing the communication methods, analyzing the city capacity, thinking about how we measure success in this, as well as building trust in the community. Let's start with talking about key stakeholders. So we frame this aspect by asking, how can the city identify and consider the needs of all current and future stakeholders? We identified and interviewed numerous stakeholder groups such as property owners, renters, business owners, commuters, new residents, old residents, parents, retirees, and we found some interesting insights. So number 1 is this demographics in Sisters has been changing quite dramatically. So you can see that the 65+ population in Sisters has grown from about 500 to almost 1,200 people since 2019. This has also coincided with the explosion of home ownership and reduction in housing affordability in Sisters. This means that the availability of rental units has fallen dramatically. And as we go about planning the urban growth boundary this year, we really need to consider the needs of this displaced population. So how can the city remove barriers to engage the average citizen and also the extra barriers faced by underrepresented groups? A few observations we made was that 1, the city's communication is limited to English only, when there is actually quite a few online translation services that are available that can be used for like social media or newsletter posts. Second, the city puts out really high quality content, but it is actually hard to find that relevant information for the average citizen. Thirdly, the newsletter sign up on the city's website is quite challenging. So like I said, the city puts up really great information, but we took turns trying to find the newsletter sign up on the city's website and had a pretty tough time. Cheryl and Spencer will go through in more depth the newsletter as well as social media content. And with that, I'll hand over to Cheryl.
Hello. So as Abhi mentioned in our themes here, we wanted to cover the first topic is communication methods. So in relation to communication methods, we asked ourselves this question: how can the city ensure correct information is communicated across a variety of outreach channels? Stakeholders chimed in on this same topic. A property owner said, leveraging more modern communication tools could help reach a broader audience. Keep a fluid mindset. Majority communicate through tech and would at least see outreach grow, if not engagement, if tech was used more. Some of the additional observations found during our research and meeting with stakeholders related to communication methods included that there were multiple websites that caused a bit of confusion as to which ones cover what. So we've got our sisterscountry.com, we've got sisterscommunity.org, we have Explore Sisters, and we have the official City of Sisters page. We also discovered that the two most used methods of communication, according to stakeholders, is the Facebook online community and the Nugget, neither of which are operated by the city. I'm talking about the grassroots Facebook groups, not the city official Facebook page. So if you talk about correct information, there's risk there when it's not operated by the city. So let's talk about some communication mediums looking at other cities. We pulled a couple, 3 other cities of Oregon, and you can see quite a bit of randomness with which mediums are used across the different cities. And looking at Hood River, which has a much larger population, they basically hit across just about all of the most popular social media forums that are out there. Sisters does pretty well compared to Joseph and Jacksonville. But rather than looking at it from what each city does, let's look at it from an approach of demographics. There is an expanded look of the demographic information in your report, but here we're going to focus on the age groups. As you can see, the darker blue areas are the more heavily used. YouTube and Facebook are consistently used for all age groups. Instagram is much more popular as you get down into the younger age groups. Fortunately, there are tools that can push out content to multiple mediums. So you only are required to create one piece of content. You could post it to Facebook and also post it to Instagram or other mediums. So that saves time, and you can leverage tools like Constant Contact. And with that, Spencer will now cover city capacity.
Thank you, Council. So city capacity, we're going to be looking at labor and budget, kind of the 2 aspects of what's capacity for the city as we look at this stated council goal. So one of the framing questions that we had here is how can the city best utilize existing and future resources for outreach and engagement? So looking at what's currently here and what can be done in the future. So for labor utilization, Jordan Wheeler, we talked to him a little bit as a stakeholder group operating the city and looked at how responsibilities are spread across department directors, key staff members. There's a lot of multiple hat wearing when it comes to specifically outreach and engagement on top of all the other hats that these director and department members are currently wearing. So there's not a dedicated communications manager. That leads to some of that lack of clear direction or consistency in terms of public outreach and consistency from the city's standpoint. This is a quote from Jordan. Allocating more existing resources to one program or activity can affect our ability to accomplish goals and objectives. So that's just kind of looking at what the limiting factors are. And then a follow-up quote from Jordan Wheeler. He says, eventually, as the cities grows or priorities change, we create a new program or establish an FTE to provide a service when it is justified. So kind of bringing it back to that council stated goal of how do we increase outreach and engagement. So now for the budget side, this is some line item budgets in previous years for public outreach. Is how it's line itemed in the city budget. So there's a high degree of variability year to year in actual money spent going back from the 2019 to 2020. You can see it goes from 4.5 to 15, 10, 5.5, almost to 20 in the current fiscal year. City staff, Carrie has also mentioned to us that a lot of this outreach is done through in-kind. That's using leveraging community stakeholder groups like C4C, which helped facilitate a lot of this Leadership Academy. Predictability in spending in terms of focused optimizations of resources is something that we will talk about a little bit more in the metrics section of measuring success, of setting a baseline expected budget for public outreach and then kind of looking at that scope of what what is there then to increase the public outreach and engagement with the council goal? So some observations are, there's a lot of third-party communication contractors or agencies that can standardize the utilization of public outreach in regards to so in regards to budget and labor, there's a lot of third-party communication contractors or agencies that can be explored to kind of look at that aspect. Another aspect, one of the key themes that we came upon through our stakeholders and key facts groups was measuring success. So just finding out if the council's goal is to increase the city's outreach and engagement, how do you measure that success? How do you come back and say, we've done it, we need a little bit more work, or we've accomplished that goal? So the framing question was, what metrics can the city use to track and improve the efficacy of outreach and engagement? And these are some quotes from the city council during the Leadership Academy, looking at how there currently is a lack of clearly defined metrics or ways to measure outreach and engagement. So we have Mayor Prieden, that there may not be an easy way to measure the success of engagement. Councilor Cobb, there's no metrics attached to this goal. Councilor Ross, outreach metrics are more quantifiable. Engagement metrics may be less quantifiable. And Councilor Lutz, no specific metrics in mind regarding outreach. So I'm just kind of showing that there's at the moment kind of a lack of just kind of clearly defined ways to measure success.
Do you see how well we work together? Like all
Yeah.
our answers are almost the same. We didn't talk to each other.
Well, and I gotta say, if that last slide was an emoji, it'd be like,
Yes.
that's the emoji.
So we'll look at three aspects. We'll look at social media, the newsletter, and in event like this event, in-person engagement, and look at metrics for those. So starting off with the Roundup newsletter, the initial rollout was tied to utility bills. So it was kind of like a motor voter type of registration. We saw a large influx of people get into the Roundup newsletter through the new billing system. That led to 1,600 subscribers with a 72% open rate, which is really high for a newsletter. So that shows that there's a lot of thirst out in the community to engage and read the outreach that the city is putting out. Something else that we found out through looking at the data analytics that Carrie and Rebecca gave us is that the open rate, which is really high, is 96% desktop, 4% mobile. So the chart on the right there shows percentage of emails opened on mobile compared to the age of user. So you can see in the 14 to 18 bracket, it's about 40% opening on mobile versus desktop. As the age goes up, on the right-hand side, the 56 to 67, you can see we're under that 10% mark there for opening emails on mobile. So that data coincides with some of the demographic data Abhi was showing earlier, that the newsletter is really popular, 72% open rate, large subscriber count. But it is primarily hitting older demographics. So there's a lot of the younger demographic age groups that are not getting that outreach that may want to. That could also be due to not having the utility bills in their name, other sort of things like that. They could be parents, roommates. They might not all have equal access to it. This is a quote from a business owner. It would be great to get an email newsletter, but I didn't know there was one. There was some difficulty in accessing the newsletter online. It was a little difficult to find. You had to kind of go through, you kind of had to know what it was called in order to search for it. This is a rural resident that says, I don't follow the city on Facebook and I didn't know they had a newsletter. So for social media engagement, the City of Sisters, the official Facebook page, has 506 followers. In contrast to the Sisters Community Facebook page has over 5,000 followers. So it's 10 times the reach and kind of push out into the community.
Spencer, is the Sisters Community Facebook page, is that the one, is that the Nextdoor page or is that something else?
That is the Facebook. I think it's community.
Sisters Community.
Sisters Community
Okay,
News
yeah,
and
just
Updates.
wanted to be sure. Yeah.
So in regards to the City of Sisters Facebook page, from mid-April to mid-May, we analyzed some data regarding what was happening on that Facebook page. There was 21 posts made during that month, 16 new followers, 13 comments, and 194 reactions. So we're seeing, like 1/10 of what the community page is, which is much more active, much more engagement, much more conversations, much more reactions, shares, likes, new followers. So in regards to constant contact, which Cheryl brought up, the city has contracted Constant Contact for the Roundup newsletter. That's how that information gets disseminated. Constant Contact offers a social media marketing as part of their platform. So kind of like how Cheryl was talking about, that allows user-friendly cross dissemination across multiple platforms in order to either tie into the community page with frequent sharing to that page to get access to those 5,000 users, and then using it to reshare on Instagram to try and grab some of those younger age demographics that use those platforms.
Spencer,
Yes.
do we know who maintains the Sisters Community Facebook page?
Yeah, I believe there's a few individuals that are Sisters residents that do admin and they manage.
Is
that
it
page.
is it a nonprofit or?
I think it's
Social page.
just citizens.
Page?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'm on there a lot, just if anybody wants to know.
Michael is, yes.
Well, that's probably why it has so many.
No, no, I wouldn't say that.
So here's a quote from one of our stakeholder interviews that we did, young adults, that if the city had an account on Instagram, I would probably follow it. And I believe more young people in our community would as well. So now on to metrics regarding just event engagement. So in-person events like we're doing tonight, one of the first things I think we can say is that attendance is based on what is discussed. We took 2 snapshots of 2 events that occurred while our Leadership Academy was occurring. One was the Deschutes County Property Tax Open House, which had 2 to 3 attendees. The ODOT.
Sorry, Joe.
The ODOT Roundabout Open House had about 70. So citizens find out about some of these high attendance events through those Facebook groups. You see people calling out and posting on the community page about these events occurring. That draws attention. It leads to the spreading of the words and the increase of the outreach done on those platforms. The other thing too is that the knowledge of these high events is based off of being able to outreach and reach those people. Here's a quote from Councilor Letts that's kind of on that, is measuring success can be a challenge because when people feel a topic isn't handled well by the city, they don't get involved. So in terms of measuring engagement success, it's going to be a little different than outreach in terms of how do you measure that, but getting the word out more about events that might find more interest and more citizens is key. So some observations that we're coming away with is Civic Plus is the website that the city uses. When we had asked for some of the analytic data regarding like views, clicks, push throughs on the website, that data still hadn't been gotten yet to the city. So there's still some analytic metric data from the actual website itself of how many clicks and views and where people go and how often they dig down into some of the other agenda meetings and notes would be really interesting, as well as Constant Contact for the newsletter, which once again, we talked about has a social media platform, which makes it much simpler and easier to use from a single voice consistent standpoint. And then using city staff events just to kind of measure some of those reach at in-person events. Baseline metrics, which would be the current reach. So it'd be evaluating through these data and metrics we've discussed tonight, looking at what's the current reach of the city, and then setting benchmarks and goals to use that data analytics, get a monthly to try and measure that success as the council looks to accomplish their goal. All right, so next I'm going to pass it back to Cheryl and she's going to discuss building trust.
Thanks, Spencer.
You guys are doing great, by the way, just so you know. Instant feedback.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so when we talk about building trust, this is very key when you want to have more engagement. It's an important topic related to engagement. A key component of building trust is building social capital. So what is social capital? Social capital is creating a feeling that we as a community are all in this together. We're creating a sense of belonging and a sense of being connected. I help you because you help me. Strong social capital in a community means a healthy community. So this is our goal. Trust is a requirement in building social capital. One theme that came out in discussing building trust from our stakeholders was emotional challenges that they felt in regards to communication with the city and engagement. Since trust really requires input being equitably sought out, honored, and incorporated into the decision-making, there were similar sentiments of underrepresentation were found amongst the local workforce, the Latin community, and younger age groups. So honest efforts to include these groups could help build social capital and build trust. A nonprofit member that was interviewed said, attending a city council meeting is intimidating for our supporters. We are unsure how to remove this barrier. I don't want to go to a city council meeting with the angry fringe. It does not seem constructive or a good use of my time, said a workforce member. The Nugget is a primary source of information, but I'm reluctant to participate in the discourse given the incivility in relation to letters to the editor. A second theme amongst the stakeholders, in addition to the emotional challenges, was the subject of transparency. So we asked the question, how can the city communicate and be transparent about how citizen feedback is incorporated into the decision-making process? One idea represented from some stakeholders was having easy access to public records. We have our land use applications on the city website that provides visibility to the public. It does require some proactive searching, however. Some cities have actually posted these land use applications and notices in their newsletters and on their social media. Some other stakeholder ideas related to transparency. It would be helpful to see more transparent follow-ups on how community input is used in decision-making. More direct outcomes visible from community input would enhance trust and engagement. I would like more transparency on how input is considered and integrated. So in summary, transparency is key to building trust, is key to improving outreach and communication engagement. It's key in building social capital. To conclude, our core cohort identified relevant facts. We shared stakeholder quotes. We asked critical questions that need to be answered in order to address the larger topic. And we discussed 5 key themes that we saw addressing our assignment on how can the City of Sisters improve community engagement and outreach. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. You're about to get 1 billion questions. So that's about 250 million each. I don't have any, so no, I'm just kidding. Does anyone want to lead us off?
I want to start with a comment and then I'll step back. Excellent report. I read it over a couple times and I don't print much stuff out anymore. Depend on this or on this. I have it in front of me in print because there's enough information in here that I want to be able to go back and forth to it. So well done, well written and thoughtful. I mean, there are some things in here that I think are going to be challenging to address. That's something we discuss a lot, but there's some other things in here that I think are relatively easy to address. So I'm going to step back now, but I just wanted to give all of you kudos for the quality and the thoroughness of this particular document.
Okay. I gotta say that the fact of our growing population, many of them being over 60 or 65, whatever that stat was surprising to me. It's something I didn't realize, that a lot of the growth was coming from that age bracket. And I look at this stuff all the time, so thank you for highlighting that. I mean, that was a really good thing to know. Would you like to, you want to take lead? You got a lot of notes there.
I've
It's good
always got a
stuff,
lot
though.
of-
It's good.
Yes, yes. I think that that is actually one of the reasons that some of your suggestions are sort of mind-blowing to us, in the sense that I'm 75. So my experience on Facebook has been totally negative. I would never go to Facebook to find real, true, safe, comprehensive, equitable outreach information. And people who do just amaze me. So to see this brings something new to me, something that I was not aware of. And so it's something that I'm going to have to open up and believe and hear and recognize that maybe there is good that can come with interfacing with Facebook. So that's new. That's something I had not considered. So that's a very good thing that I have learned tonight. I'll have to go to that particular website on Facebook to see whether that website, go to Facebook, that particular site, and see whether it is a site that I would be proud to have our community view if they were looking for information from us. Because a lot of the sites are not safe and open and monitored, I guess is the word, in such a way that I would recommend people to go there to find out information about the city. I'm not familiar with this site, so I will check it out. But that's one of the first things I would have to say before I would say, oh, let's tie into that site.
Can I
When-
just add
yes,
something?
go ahead.
On that, I have noticed recently on that grassroots site that there are some members, and I believe there's some of the administrators, are actually copying from the city Facebook page and putting out there, hey, there's the Urban Growth Steering Committee applications are coming up. And that's been helpful, that they're pushing that information to that group of 5,000. So there's definitely people reading that and seeing it, and a need, they want that need of the official information from the city.
But it's mixed in with lost dogs, though. So you have to, I mean, you have to be a member to see good stuff, but you will always see random stuff as well.
Right, so I'll let somebody else talk too.
Okay.
I'd like to follow up on what both of you said, and that is that comes down to one of the topics you had in here, is that I think that we need to look at the applications that allow us to cross-post. I'm a member of both of those groups as well as others. I mean, every now and then something pops in from Explorer Sisters. Something pops in from some of the other groups around town, and that's because it's being cross-posted. And you're right, I think that I do see things popping up. This is happening and that's happening. The advantage of our being the entity that controls that information and puts it in is the complete document goes in and not the partial document. I have seen many partial posts that can be taken incorrectly as to what the purpose of such things are. And yes, as I've discussed with you, I do also pay attention to Next Door Sisters, much to my heart's chagrin, and but because I want to also know what negativity is out there and what people are saying, and whether or not they're portraying the truth or they're kind of bending it. So, but the whole, you mentioned cross-posting, you mentioned using tools to see that our message gets out in multiple ways, and you couldn't be closer to the truth. That's exactly what needs to happen. We need to control that information when it goes out, so it's accurate. And those are the groups where people will see it and then come to us and ask us more questions. You're right, I did see the UGB listed in there, which was good.
So yeah, I really like the suggestion about the like constant contact. Great solution. Possibly, do we know about the cost? Like, what are we paying for that? And if we wanted to do something more comprehensive with the communication outreach, does that cost a lot more? And then, you know, it's kind of a question for staff, but also for you guys. And part B to that question is, or knowing our bandwidth with our small staff right now, is it better to maybe contract out that work and go with a third party? Did you kind of come up with you know, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so in regards to like utilizing third party or different agency groups and cross-platforming, I would say they're all pretty efficient at what they're doing. So I imagine from a cost benefit analysis, Constant Contact and their social media platforming is just one of the little packages they can sell. I imagine they're pretty straightforward with their pricing and pretty clear on that, and then real user-friendly interface in that regard. I don't know if the B has anything to add in regards to kind of third-party contractors.
Yeah, the value of using an agency would be also you kind of buy in expertise on the platforms, right? So if you want to create truly engaging content on, let's say, YouTube or Instagram or Facebook, you actually do need slightly different content that goes there, right? Because Instagram is going to be very visual, and then that will have to propagate through the like cities, like when the city's doing events, when you take pictures, like making sure you're taking pictures of faces and like tagging people, taking permission, tagging people, kind of things like that, and actually make the content more engaging, make it more likely that people are going to reshare the content. That's
Now,
how they
we're
get-
talking about, you know, sewer systems and stuff, you know.
Yeah, still,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, you'd be surprised. The stuff gets pretty popular that you wouldn't expect.
Yeah, look at this. How fun.
But yeah, so when you hire an agency, they kind of bring some of that expertise, and they'll also like provide some guidance on what kind of content to create and help create that content. It is obviously more expensive, but you can have that as part of the budget. So as Spencer was showing before, there's quite a bit of variability, and you say that, okay, like we're gonna spend $3,000 a year or $4,000 a year engaging with an agency who's gonna manage our social media.
Yeah, because it seems like in this climate, I mean, it's, you know, everybody has a attention span of 5 seconds and, yeah. Curious too. And yeah, I think there's a lot to think about, because if we're going with like a professional, like PR firm or something like that, you know, you're hoping that you are getting, the expertise and, you know, with that, including, I feel like a lot of the issues, is that, you know, we've only had the bandwidth to be reactive, and we really need to be proactive and be guiding the conversation and starting the conversation instead of reacting to it and trying to clean up afterwards. You know, I was talking to a parent in town, you know, in the Hayden Homes neighborhood, you know, and a lot of the parents were, you know, they were mad at the school district because they hadn't put in crosswalks to the new school yet. And she was trying to explain, like, well, that's not the school district's responsibility, that's the city's responsibility. And, you know, and the city's working on that, but, you know, and I was like, oh, that's something we should be out, you know, kind of sharing that messaging now, even before, because, you know, rumors spread much faster. So, but yeah, but you know, it's a financial consideration. You know, and that doesn't, and even if we hire a third party PR firm or something like that, that still takes staff time to work with them to get them educated and, you know, yeah, so there's, yeah, really great suggestions, a lot to think about in that respect.
I would say that, one of the things that you did do, you mentioned the budget for, and how it's varied. I think in the past, and I can't speak to what's happening currently, but in the past, under previous city managers, and you see that fluctuation because perhaps we were going to have a city election that has a bond measure, or perhaps we were going to be advertising for public input on parks or public input on master plan. And so that's where the bump goes up. And it says to me, we almost need to have another line item that we kind of determine is being utilized for outreach, consistent outreach, and then one that's utilized for some of our more special needs. I mean, in budgeting is tricky. You try not to make the budget so complex with so many lines in it that the average user looks at it and throws it away. But sometimes a little more detail is probably benefit, and I appreciate it. These are some of the things I pulled out of it, and I'd already pulled it out of it when I went through it, was that concept of, that's right, it does fluctuate up and down. And so what that lower number is probably what we're consistently spending, and that tells me that number needs to be higher. And then that higher number should be peeled off and reflected for what it's being used for.
So on that point, Counselor, on that point, the fluctuation, what I noticed is that it was higher during COVID, which makes all kinds of sense because we were doing a lot of communicating with the public at that time. And then it dropped down shortly after that. And then once we put a goal of communicating better with the public in our goals, it started coming back up. So I think we are making progress on that, but your report, I found it to be really excellent. I enjoyed reading it. I took notes, and I found that there were several items that we could do very quickly without very much expense, if any expense at all. And I suggested those to Carrie and to Jordan. And I think that council could discuss them at some point because, well, for instance, we could have a counselor's corner or a mayor's report or city manager's monthly report in the Nugget. And it would be something that people could expect to be there, whatever the period is. And that might cost a little bit. On the other hand, you can sign up to get email from the city right now for all these different things. So we could have an email that's the city manager's monthly report that comes directly to anyone who signs up. And I think that's an easy one. It wouldn't cost much. Another example is the town halls, the idea of, so we've already started our town halls. That was one of our goals. We have 2 more that we're planning to do. It's topic led, so depending on the topic that bubbles up in the city. And again, coordinating with C4C can help reduce the cost for relative our resources. And the suggestion was not to have it during working hours. So if C4C is available to help us, then our employees, our staff aren't working on those hours. So these are just a couple of examples. I came up with 8 that we could do right away from your documentation. So I really want to thank you. And another issue.
Please.
There was lots of good stuff that
Yes.
low hanging fruit, that's what we call what we've been talking about. The hard one I find is transparency. And I have testified at all kinds of events and participated in groups who testified. And I've sat on this side, on the decision-making side. And I don't think I've ever felt comfortable with the sense of engagement and recognition that everybody wants to happen there, and it doesn't. Most people feel unheard, unfulfilled on both sides because you want to explain, and that isn't the dynamic that goes on in these. Thus, town halls and things like that are a way of possibly doing more than that. But when an important issue comes and people testify, they think that then we somehow get together and have all these discussions and have all this reasoning that they don't know about, and side pressures and influence from outside friends and family and businesses and whatever, and that we magically come up with a decision that was not particularly taking into consideration what they had to say. And that is so, so wrong. What we hear and what is presented to us with the agenda, which everybody has a right to read before the meeting, just as we do, and the discussion we have sitting right here is all there is. There is no other area to be transparent about. So how do we be transparent when all the decision-making is made right here in public and on video for everybody to see, and yet nobody feels that it's transparent? So how do you make that connection?
Yeah, that's a difficult one because I know working through the Leadership Academy, I know Cheryl and some of us do listen to some of the meeting minutes while we're doing things around the house.
Yeah, very
Sleeping.
engaging, I'm sure.
But then there's also some of one of the key stakeholder interviews I did was a sister's resident for over 40 years. And she's like, kind of like, yeah, I know I can find it online. I know I can find the meeting minutes, but they're long and they're kind of lengthy documents, and just back to kind of that short attention span in a sense there, where if like Councilor Cobb was talking about, if there was like a city manager monthly report, if there was a highlight reel of things or a general synopsis, I know then you get into editorializing recorded minutes. So then you're once again entering another subjectivity into this way of transparency.
But I feel like that the information that the city manager puts out is the end result. And I feel like what people want to know is the why. And I don't know how to get the why out there.
Turn it.
Yeah, let's get it.
Okay, so towards the end of the report, I use the dark skies topic
Yes.
to kind of get some feel for transparency on the website and how citizen input affects, the final decision. And so I searched Dark Skies Sisters and I went to the first link and it was 404 not found. And so then I had to scroll down, and on the fifth link, it was the same title, Dark Skies Sisters, from the city website. And at the bottom, very bottom in a small link, was the public records. And once I opened those and I started reading, there is, communications with astronomers, school officials, students, artists, and I started hearing, why they were pushing for this so much, and also their like specific suggestions. And then I went and saw the standards that were set. I saw that transparency, but I had to scroll down. I had to search for it. And a lot of people would give up on the first click. So it could be as low hanging fruit as just simple site maintenance in terms of creating transparency.
Funny you should say that, because I had that discussion a couple of meetings ago about trying to find something on the city website and I think there were some modifications made, but I haven't checked it since I went in to see how well the links are working. But as a person who worked extensively in media and media production as well as in technology, I expect those answers to be in the top and not have to dig for them. It might be a 1 or 2 liner, so for more information, go here, then you go down the rabbit hole. But you shouldn't have to go down the rabbit hole to find the rabbit unless you're looking for it.
And on the monthly report idea, when I was talking to Jordan, our city manager, what I was suggesting is we report what's coming, what we've done, and any like 3 or 4 questions that have come up that seem frequently that month from the community, and answer it as best we can. And so it wouldn't be just accomplishments. It would be more than that.
I found your comments in talking to some of our folks out in Sisters Country enlightening as well. We struggle with this one because in essence, we're elected to represent the residents that live within the urban growth boundary, that pay the taxes and whatever. But we also know that we have a large contingent of people who utilize us as their hometown. And sometimes it's really hard to distinguish between what we can and can't do when requests come in. And I'll use the example of the community garden discussion that we're having currently. You know, it's been out on private property. They're looking to try to site it somewhere. At least, I would say probably 50% of the users of the community garden are not residents of the city of Sisters. That's not a problem, but it creates for us, as we look at how we're going to do it and how we're going to fund it, an issue. And so I don't have an answer, but I just think it's interesting, you know, people do view, whether they're in Camp Sherman or whether they're out up in the valley, out towards Holmes or Tollgate, they all view themselves as residents of Sisters. And their mail comes to Sisters. And so it's you don't want to sound cold-hearted, but sometimes it comes down to where the money is and how you can use the money. And sometimes it comes down to, yeah, we can do that and accommodate everybody. So, you know, it's the danger of being a 1 square mile city in a 40 or 50 square mile area of residence. Usually it's the opposite way around. The city is much larger than the outreach area. We're just the opposite. So I don't have any answer. But I appreciate is seeing those in there. It brings it back to light of something I think about a lot. And I also like the thoroughness. I mean, I'm not kidding when I said I went through it and I read it and then I'm going to print this out and read it again and make some notes in it. I didn't expect something this good. And I don't mean that in a negative way. No, you only had 6 weeks. You only had 6 weeks. And usually something like this takes people a lot longer than 6 weeks to put together. And the folks in the back from the university are shaking their head. They know because
That's a $25,000, $50,000 report from a consultant. No, I'm not lying. It's a,
6 months and 14.
do I have the price right? I mean, I'm in the ballpark, right?
But my point is, so I don't want you to think that was an insult. My point is that for this document to be in front of us, as complete as it is, and concise as it is, and clear as it is, with 6 weeks worth of work where you didn't meet every day. You had to do work by committee. It's good.
And a committee of disparate.
Yeah.
Disparate.
I mean, and so I know it didn't come out right, but you have to understand it's when I tell you it's good, it is. I've seen a lot of them. And there's a lot of bad ones.
Wanted to comment on your first comment. When you were interviewing people or maybe even in your process and participating this, how much of general lack of knowledge or confusion in the community is there of which agency does what? And, you know, who's responsible for what? And, you know, we certainly get blamed and applauded sometimes for things that we have nothing to do with, you know, legally. Sometimes, you know, in our community, we're small, so we all work together. You know, we try to work as closely as we can with all of the agencies and nonprofits, but we are different, you know, different agencies. So how much of that were you seeing and how much of our time do we need to spend towards educating people on this is where the line
City
is drawn?
operations. and-
Yeah, you have a.
Yeah, I think one of the things that came up a lot, and it even came up from Carrie, Jordan, some of the other presenters we had during the academy, is just the special districts. So a lot of, back to Gary Ross, you have Sisters Country that are like, oh, but we're part of the school district. But that's a special district with the, the fire, Camp Sherman, the police, the city, they're all these little bubbles, but kind of gets globbed into that's the city. So there's some kind of mix marketing there in terms of who's responsible, like you talked about with the crosswalks, of who's responsible for that kind of party. Yeah, that
Do you
was.
get any sense that our school system helps in that regard or doesn't really go there? As far as educating students on how government works?
I'm not sure from the education standpoint of the public school system, but I would say from the public standpoint, I think the public schools is probably the most impact and most connections people have with their city. If we start thinking about the electricity and the water and the sewer, then we start thinking about the actual city of Sisters. So there's kind of that connection of the sister school district kind of takes some of that face of the city, even if it's not necessarily the city of Sisters itself.
So is it worth, you think, do we need to be putting some effort into, clarifying and educating? I'm seeing a lot of head nods behind you, so on who does what.
I think that your intuition is right in that people don't really know divisions. And to be honest, like until Jordan went through his presentation on, I think our second day or first day, I had no idea. And I consider myself pretty well informed. But I'll also say that like my background is corporate and we have the saying that is don't ship the org chart. And what that means is that for, in corporate, we're talking about users, but here we're talking about citizens. It's a very large cognitive load to take on to understand exactly how the city works, which roads are maintained by who, which sidewalks are maintained by who, and like all these different ecosystems, right? And it's not that we follow like this standard template that's across America. Right, like in Oregon, in Sisters, like in Deschutes County, like we have this like very specific combination of organizations that we are working with, but maybe like a more unified front, more cohesion in how things are communicated, how information is found. Like you shouldn't have to go to 15 different websites, and the first question is trying to figure out, okay, which website is the right website to even go to begin with, right? Like Cheryl was talking about in her part of the presentation. So in an ideal world, we should have a more unified approach, even though there's these different organizations behind the scenes. But for citizens, like we should take away that cognitive load, mental load of trying to figure out for citizens where they need to go to. Like it should be able to be triaged or redirected in a central space that like the different organizations come together and figure out how we solve it, instead of like trying to educate 4,000 people on the idiosyncrasies of, fire district, school district.
So maybe it might be helpful if we had on our website, there could be the drop down of, different
Who does
things,
what?
but it says, but it says fire, right? And you click on fire and it's a link to
Yeah,
them. And
yeah.
we don't have to answer their questions, but here's how you get there.
Yeah.
Can't just ask Siri?
Yeah.
Who's that? I'm not an Apple guy, so.
Yeah, because I know that we had,
It's
there was,
It's Alexa's twin.
Yeah, Alexa.
there was and see, I'm even forgetting the name of it, the website that was supposed to do that.
Yeah.
But was not, horribly successful. So maybe instead of having another website, maybe the lesson learned there was if maybe all of the kind of top agencies kind of, at least had shared some.
Brother,
links.
sister connections right at the beginning.
Yeah,
If you don't know where to go, here's.
yeah. That could be helpful. Okay, thank you.
I would like to suggest that the best way for us to appreciate what you have done is for us to have a follow-on workshop where we decide, as Counselor Blum said, which low-hanging fruit we could actually get to. Stop spilling things.
That was for low hanging.
That was for low-hanging
We're
fruit.
done with that one now.
But I really would like to suggest that we agree to do that. I think that would honor their work and so,
We're not gonna sweep it under the rug?
no.
The rug's glued down.
Yeah, it is.
And my second suggestion is there were several questions in the survey from the public that I think we should answer right away. Some had incorrect assumptions. And if we, made some kind of public statement in the nugget or an email, I'm not quite sure how to do it, but that, just to get back on things that aren't going to be done and why, and things that are being done and that they're in progress, so that people know they're actually happening, and what we may do. I think we should reply to some of those survey questions.
Okay,
I have more.
you have more? Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to
There's
hear more.
time.
Unless you're ink smeared, you can't.
I'm kind of waiting till the end.
Oh, okay.
I've got some stuff
Well,
I wanted.
it's-
I just need 5 minutes at the end.
Oh, okay. When you contacted other cities to determine what sort of outreach that they had, and Hood River happened to be the one that had considerable outreach, did you also talk to them about how effective they thought it was? Did all the additional boxes being checked make them feel like their outreach was working well for them, or was that anything you got into?
Well, to be honest with you, we didn't talk to them.
Okay.
We went out and said, let's look at what they put out there. We went to their social media sites. We went to their YouTube sites. Bend has a YouTube site, and they have little videos ranging from the deputy giving a report on crime statistics for the month, or, a firefighter giving a report. I mean, there's so much content that we can pull into YouTube, for example. But that's primarily what we did. We just went and looked at the cities. B actually did most of that to confirm what they had.
That's something that I think would be kind of interesting to find out. Does adding more, Yeah.
I guess the
Make
follow-up
a
question for
difference.
you along that same line is, when you went to that website, and we're looking at it, was it able to answer the questions you had, but what was apparent on that front and up front? So in other words, we don't know how the citizens view it, but you going in cold and looking at it with sort of a critical eye, did their format or someone else's format, whether it's Joseph or whomever, really hit you as a great way to communicate with the citizenry?
Yeah, I think there's variable answers there depending on the city and like what they were doing. But I think Hood River had the website had the page where the newsletter and all the notifications were on the same page. And when you went to that the sign up page for that, the newsletter was pre-selected. And then you could add on like the other committee
yeah, yep.
notifications. Whereas for City of Sisters, you go to the notifications page and newsletter is actually not there. If you search for newsletter on the search, you can't find it. You have to search for Roundup, right? So if you don't receive the newsletter, you don't know that it's called Roundup.
Yeah.
Right? And it's in a totally different part of the website. It's like navigationally at like a totally different parent. It's not even like siblings in terms of like where it is in the architecture. Yes, definitely.
It's that bad family member.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm gonna just,
get in
I
there.
gotta get in here because I haven't really said it. I like to boil things down a little bit as mayor. Sometimes I just like to get to the chase. If you had to give us a letter grade on our
That's
outreach
scary.
and everything, what do you think you'd give us? The city? If you had to put a letter grade to it, pretend we're eighth graders.
Rochambeau?
Yeah, right.
No, to be honest, I would say it's, a letter grade, I'd say B or B plus.
Okay.
There's been a lot of active movement from the city. Obviously, we're a smaller town, so that also does kind of help in regards of just in terms of numbers of engagement and outreach.
I mean, having it as a goal is, first of all,
Yeah.
there's a step, right? I mean, obviously, we're pretty proud of that, that we made it a goal, but, one of the reasons that you guys are doing what you're doing is because it's not just because it's a goal. I mean, obviously, we want that goal to happen, but we also want to know how to make it better and how to make it permanently better and just improve things generally, you know what I mean? So, I think this is great. I think what we're doing is good. What you guys are doing is well, kind of better, actually. You're doing work for us in a lot of ways. Thank you. But I don't think we're that far away from being really, really good. What I like to talk about a lot of times, and gosh, these guys are tired of hearing about it, is doing stuff the sisters way and doing things. I think we can lead a small city revival of how to engage with their citizens. And I think we're taking these first steps to do that. And I want you guys to know that me personally, and I think other people on council up here, Susan especially, would love to take some giant strides and do some really cool stuff without breaking the bank, without having to hire a 3-person full-time media department or marketing department.
I
or
was
anything
looking
like
for a PIO job.
Yeah. So I just want you guys to know that's the kind of things I think about when I'm reading this
Yeah.
report, and I think others are too. I just want to lead the discussion on it and say that's what we want to do. And I think that there are a lot of things that we can do up here to make this better. But there's a lot of stuff that has to happen out in the community as well. This is a 50-50 prospect. I'll give us 50%. But the rest of it has to kind of fall on the community as well to come meet us in the middle somewhere. And that's the message that I want everybody in the room to have. We're all members of this community. We're out there doing our businesses and working our jobs and meeting people. Some of us go to church, some of us, we all have our clubs and our nonprofits, Kellen, and things like that. And the discussions that we have outside this room are 10 times more important than the discussions we have in this room. I really believe that. And I think that when we're done here today and the dust settles, you're going to be able to go out in the community and go, man, you're having a coffee at the coffee shop. That's what I do quite often. What a great discussion it was. You got to read this report. Now, if we can't find it on the website, yeah, that's an issue. We could fix that.
Yeah.
To me, that's small potatoes. It's the bigger discussions about how does the community evolve in a larger way to make sure we have less issues like this in the future. Fixing websites and, adding to Instagram, all good stuff. TikTok, wouldn't know how to do it. Snapchat, what? But those are small things, but the big things are the discussions in the community. How do I get them more involved? And you guys are becoming more involved and I love it. I think this is great. I can't wait to do a cohort next year with another subject. And I just want to I think I want to do it every year after this, not just next year. Because I think it's good. What do you guys think? Yeah, okay. Any more questions? Because I'm gonna,
Just one.
okay, go ahead.
Follow-up comment to something that Council Blum said, and that
Okay.
is that she's right. I mean, we don't make decisions in the back room. We make decisions right here in front of everyone. I will be the first to admit that when we have a controversial topic and we have 120 people stand up and say the exact same thing over and over and over again, you do tune out at some point. And so, if there's a civics lesson for everybody in the room, someone has already said it, it's like, I agree, and then that's the end of it. It's a lot more impact, to be honest with you. But even though we might have 100 people who don't like something and 100 people who do like something, in the end, what we try to do is make the decision that's best for the city, that complies with the law, that is sound and functional and doable. And sometimes that makes us unpopular. Sometimes it makes us popular. So, but I really like what you had to say, because it is a frustration of mine, having served on a special district where the dialogue between the citizenry and the district directors was a little more fluid and free-flowing than you can have in this kind of a quasi-judicial situation.
I wanted to say two things. One, just back up what you said, and I think paraphrase it is that, meeting halfway. I think that there's a lot of stuff we can do better, and this is really great place to jump off. And there's so much more we can do and we should be doing. However, it's it does take initiative, and democracy is messy and it is uncomfortable. And I mean, we will strive to make it as comfortable as possible, but that's just what it is. And, public speaking is hard for people. You know, and we understand that, and we'll strive to make that as comfortable as possible, but it's, we can only do so much. People, change is uncomfortable. That's why it's called change. So, as long as we can meet, community members, I mean, I'm willing to go 75%, but it just, I'm not, we always say we can't go door to door, and talk about our feelings with everybody, but we'll do as much as we can. I wanted to circle back to the newsletter. Two things about that is, I was pleased that, we felt the newsletter was good and people were engaging with it and reading. And so, let's, obviously, we got a toehold there. Let's run with it. So two questions. One was everything was almost always open on desktop. Was that because of maybe user group preferences, or was that because it was not very mobile friendly and that needs to be tweaked?
I would say the desktop open rate would be kind of tied into who's paying the utilities, so who's signed up for it. And with some of the changing demographic data, kind of right off the bat, who's going to be paying the utilities is already in the age bracket that's not going to open it on mobile. So it's kind of a one and the same.
I would also, if they're paying it online, they're on they're on the desktop typically, and they would click on that link while they're there.
Yeah. Okay. That's good to know. And then, yeah, I've had that conversation with my husband of like, oh, didn't you read about that? And he's like, no. And I was like, oh, because my name's on the utility bill. He doesn't get the email. And I was like, we should get you signed up. But we haven't done that yet. Leaves my second question. How do we get people to sign up? Since this seems to be something we're putting some effort into, has some success, how do we get it across the finish line and get another 1,000, 2,000 people signing up for it? I mean,
Put it in the nugget.
put it in the nugget. Yeah, I mean, is there like something, can we, a contest or a coupon or something that, if you sign up for the city
website,
you
might win this lovely blue mug.
Yeah, we've been to, I've been to a lot of, meetings, emergency preparedness meetings where it's been over and over again, like, sign up for Deschutes County alerts and stuff. And I mean, it's, you have a room full of people and they're like, okay, everybody get your phone out, and Russell. Okay, now you got to dial. I mean, you literally have to hold their hand and walk through the process to get them to do it, even though it's just 5 numbers and you're signed up, for text alerts. So I get it. So I don't know if you had any ideas on how to enhance this process, or somebody behind you has an answer to.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to what Councillor Cobb was talking about with the nugget, and just to kind of drive that home a little bit more. Everybody reads the nugget. Like, that was very clear in all of our stakeholder interviews, all the ages, from the younger to the older. And if there was a consistent, regular column or corner or whatever you want to call it that people knew about, like they expected it, they could see it every single week. I mean, maybe monthly is better, but weekly would be fine too. And whatever you include in that corner, at the very bottom, you can have like, want to know more, or here's, a highlight from the newsletter. And you can always have your website and your newsletter sign up like at the very bottom of that spot. So you can keep driving people back to the website or back to the newsletter. And it's there, and they won't forget it because they'll see it repeatedly.
And I think the lesson there is that our coverage has done this in the last year as we've had changes in our city correspondent. And I think maybe the lesson is that if we want a consistent message, then maybe we need to be driving that / paying for it.
Is there somebody from the Nugget here? Okay,
Yay.
I'm glad you're here because we
Yeah.
haven't had somebody from the Nugget in a city council meeting for quite a long time.
And
Yeah.
you can tell how important it is to everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, but
We'll get with you later.
But I think we've been relying on the goodness of the Nugget to have somebody available and report on things. But, we have gone through this period where we did not have anybody reporting on it. And I think we're realizing that we maybe need to be more proactive about
Certainly.
making sure that we have a presence in there regardless of if they have a staff member available or not.
And the reason why it's important to control the information is I just Googled City of Sisters. Wonderful Bing, one of my least favorite search engines. And it comes up with the city website and it has a little picture off the side of some of the things like they usually do. And it says Town Hall, City of Sisters, and it's a picture of the Sister Saloon. And I'm not joking.
So where's the problem?
And make the meetings more fun, but I don't.
Here's with the mayor. I've been talking about it for a long time, so. Go ahead, get the microphone, please.
Just to note, on the Facebook page, you can always pin a post at the top. So the link for the roundup could be pinned at the top of the Facebook page. So it's the first thing you see if you go to the Facebook page.
Cool. Thanks for the
I'm
update.
using the word newsletter.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like you pointed out.
Not
some people
roundup,
don't
yeah.
know what that means.
Or both with
Yeah.
the round.
They might think it has something to do with the rodeo.
And you can also just have a pop-up on the website. When you initially click the website, the first thing that shows up is sign up for our newsletter. And you have to X out of it to see anything else. And you can send,
So rude.
but you can do it. And you can send that link to like Explore Sisters or the C4C website and do a lot more cross-pollinating where that link is just circulating on those Facebook groups or on different web pages so that you can't avoid it at some point.
And something else that's interesting in the newsletter too, I believe we brought it up in the report, but not in the presentation, is that Carrie and Rebecca have been adding little questions, little trivia, kind of like pop quizzes of like, what's the tallest ponderosa in town? And where's it located? And they're seeing, I think it was like 40 to 50+% of people that opened it clicked on the answer the question. And then the next newsletter has the answer to it. So there is this kind of like yin and yang of this engagement that's happening through outreach. And I
Mhm.
know Carrie and Rebecca have both kind of hinted that they're starting off with kind of these fun topical things and using that avenue there to address some bigger things, whether that's kind of pulse point or survey or kind of it's a really good tool there that can be accessed and used for meatier issues other than trees.
And I want to say to staff, especially the two people you just mentioned, I'm not saying you guys aren't doing a good job. It's what we have and what we're doing with the staff we have. I think what we're seeing is ways that we could try to go in other directions and try to be a force multiplier, like pop-ups and things like that. And so I want to be clear that when I pointed things out very quickly, and I want to believe it's not because I'm on city council, because I'm a citizen, that these things get corrected or moved forward. So they're not really off topic, but I got to think we're kind of beating up and I don't want to be beating up the staff because I think they do a good job.
No, the newsletter's new and it just started on Jordan's watch, right? So,
Yep.
I mean, to your credit. So, I mean, we're already many steps ahead where we were just 1 year ago. So, and thank you, Carrie. I know you do a lot on Facebook and stuff too. So.
Yes, thank you, Carrie.
Susan, you got anything else?
No, I
I got some stuff. So I got 4 points now. I was just 2, now it's 4. I do want to bring the public speaking, and a lot of people, don't like to do that. You have 5 counselors up here and a very engaged city manager. If anybody wants to just talk about something, please just come up to us and talk to us. I'm out and about as the mayor. Hopefully you guys see me all over town just doing community stuff, just being a citizen and being there, that's what we're out there. We're here to have that public engagement. And if somebody doesn't want to come to a city council meeting, I'm okay with that. I find them dry sometimes myself, and I'm sitting up here running them. So you don't have to speak at a podium. If you need to talk to somebody, talk to one of us. Talk to Kellen. He'll get somebody in front of you. There's other people in the community that can connect people together. And I think if the connections are good between us and organizations, then the webs get deeper and get around, and then there's more trust. Trust is all about communication. That's social trust. It's all about just talking about it. It's not about, to me, it's not nearly as much about where do you find the information on the website. I think we can fix that. And again, I think that's small potatoes. I think the bigger part is just making sure you know who your mayor is and that he's willing to have a discussion with you for 45 minutes if you want it. And I think the other counselors are the same, so that's what we're here for. you can email us as well.
And I think we've been talking about, trying to do like a, coffee with a counselor or something. like
Yeah,
that,
I mean,
which I
I-
think would even be better because sometimes I'm happy.
Smaller groups.
Yeah, and I'm also happy to talk to people in the community when I have the time, if I'm in the middle of something.
Right. I mean, if you're at
I don't
Ray's,
wanna blow-
Walking
I
the
don't
kid
wanna-
to school.
I don't want to blow off somebody, but it's
Right.
like, we all live here and have
No.
lives and jobs and kids and all that kind of
Right.
stuff. So.
Fika's at 8 to
but-
9.
What's that?
Fika's at 8 to 9.
There you
Yeah.
go.
The mayor's
Thank you.
usually in there.
I'm in there quite a bit too. The other thing,
Three of us can't be.
Gary touched on something that reminded me of something, is that we're the main policymakers of town. That's what we're here for. This is much more immediate than we normally deal with. We're usually doing stuff, we're thinking out next year, next fiscal year, 5 years down the road, comprehensive plan, 20 years down the road. And so this is why we're so excited about this. It's exciting. But some people in the community have to remember that we are long-term planners and thinkers much of the time. And so a lot of the things that sometimes people don't like, it's not that we don't, it's not that we're not concerned about the immediate, but a lot of times we're making decisions on and votes for urban growth boundary expansions and things like that, that are way out in the future. And some of it we're required to do. So that's part of the social trust as well. It's just everybody needs to remember that a lot of times we're talking about stuff that it's not going to change anything tomorrow, but it might change something 10 years down the road. And so we have to keep that in mind. Third, we got about 10 minutes. So it's going to get a little heavier. On that 50-50 or 75-25% mix between us and the public, we're only as good as we're held accountable by the public. Because if we're not held accountable by the rest of the community, we could sit up here and do whatever we wanted and it would look really bad and it would be very apparent that that's what we were doing. We, don't do that. We don't like to even hear that people think we do that. I've been told many times that, oh, you're bought out, you're bought and paid for.
Oh, yeah.
That's one of the things I'm like, I have no idea how that could even happen because there are ethics laws in Oregon where I can't take anything more than $50 from one person for a whole calendar year. You're not even allowed to. And it wouldn't be hard to figure out if I was, right? So that part, I just want everybody to know that you guys have to hold us accountable. And if we're not representing people's positions, then you should come tell us. The fourth one, and this is probably the most important one and probably the least important for the actual discussion tonight, but the best way to get engagement and diversity on this council is by electing people that are the people that you want to see on this council. That's the biggest power that the community has, and people discount that, and they shouldn't, because if there's somebody that you like, you go, man, you're really cool, Spencer. Why don't you run for council? You're my age, you've got family, you own a business. Get out there and do it. That's the best way that somebody can get a voice, is by supporting somebody that they know personally to get up on council. I don't know everybody personally, but I've certainly been trying the last few years to meet everybody as I'm going along. So I don't have as big a social trust as Mr. Sisters Bakery does, but the best way to get represented and get the representation you want on this council and having the council speak is actually by voting, and voting for people that represent you.
And
that you
before
already
that,
know.
before that, running for office.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'd like to be encouraged for people running for office. I mean, I think this is like the ultimate thing. This is pretty darn cool. I'm involved. I like it. I'm out there. I try and represent well. Not everybody
You get
does.
to know stuff before everybody else does. That's
Sometimes,
the best part.
Sometimes. But that's the most important thing I wanted to say is, it all starts on election day, to be honest with you. And I think that's super important. I think people should know that. And I think we're going to see an election this year. I think we're going to have many, many counselors.
I hope we see an election this
New-
year.
new-
Something.
But we have new people running this year, so I think it's great. So anyway, one last piece, bring it, come on.
So you led me right to it, because you're talking about being involved. And oftentimes, when the end of the cohort, you get a certificate, some different things. I do have cards for everybody. I'll get you guys at the end of this.
Speak into the mic.
Love saying that. That was awesome. They got me. But instead of a certificate, you will get this lovely, everybody will get a mug. But what I thought I'd hand you was an advisory board application instead. So everyone will get one. And the advisory board applicant, we have a lot of positions opening up in the fall. You can turn it in sometime in October to Rebecca. It'll be all on our website. So
Hopefully near the
up with
top.
all of you guys, but that is your parting gift from me is this. Thanks, you guys. It was great working with you.
Okay, so we got about 5 minutes before our city council meeting. Thank you again. We appreciate you more than you'll ever know. But this is the end of our workshop, and if you'd like to stick around, I recommend you do, if you want to.
Thank you.
Sign up for those advisory boards.
Well, that was fun. Okay. I want to call to order the June 12th regular city council meeting. It is 6:34 PM. And the first thing we're going to do is Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. And there's so few of us, let's belt it out. No, it's fine. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. I like doing that. Roll call, Rebecca, please.
Mayor Preden,
I am here.
Council President Blum. Here. Counselor Letts.
Here.
Counselor Ross.
Here.
Counselor Cobb.
Present?
Okay. Next up is the approval of the agenda. I could use a motion.
I would move approval of the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That was everybody, right? Visitor communication, do we have any?
I did get a note from Michael. I don't see him.
He's sitting in the hall by the bathrooms.
He just walked outside.
Oh, he did?
Okay,
Okay.
all right. Well, sorry, Michael. Next up is the consent agenda.
Move approval of the consent agenda. Everybody else got their mouth full.
That's all right.
I second.
We have a motion and then second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Right. On to council business. Looks like we have a public hearing, and it's a resolution, declaring the city's election to receive state revenue. Finance Director O'Neill.
Yes, thank you. We're going to be spending some time together tonight for good things.
Is it Finance Director or Director of Finance?
Either or, just depends on the
Sure.
day.
What's the card say?
Finance Director, I think.
Okay.
But it's ultra small font. Carrie did that on purpose, if you'll notice that. It's smaller font than everyone else.
I noticed hers was really big. on
Yeah,
her card.
yeah.
That's not right.
She was trying to be budget conscious.
She was, yeah, paid by the ink dot. So thank you very much. Oh, you want to open the public hearing?
I open the public hearing.
So thank you very much. This resolution is for the public to have the ability to comment on the purpose of and use of state shared revenues. This also happens at the budget meeting. So this is a state statute. And again, this is the public's opportunity to comment on things they do or do not like that the city's spending their finances from those revenues on. So this is more or less a statute that the city is required to do annually.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Is there any public comment? For or against? It's all good. All right. I'm going to close the public hearing. Thanks again. I appreciate you
you like a
taking
mo-
care of this.
Would you like a motion?
Well, I was gonna ask if anybody had any things to discuss about it. No? Okay, then I could probably entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to approve Resolution 2024-15.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any dissension? I didn't think so. Okay, great. Let's spend the money.
Okay,
All right. Next up is a public hearing and consideration of resolution 2024-16 to adopt the fiscal year budget, appropriate funds, approving the tax levy, and directing staff to file the budget with the county clerk. Let me open the public hearing. Oh,
yes, thank you. So this is where all the work and the leading up to the budget process, the budget committee process comes to fruition. So as you can see in this resolution here, I have it up on the screen. These are all the appropriation categories that are up for approval tonight. You'll notice the little bit of uniqueness with the general fund. The general fund has budget appropriations by department. So you see those, all those departments here. You have council manager, finance administration, so on and so forth. So you're approving those by department. And the other funds, for instance, the water fund here, you're approving those by category or organizational unit. So you have personnel services, materials and services and the like. So it's a little bit more broken down for the rest of the city departments. So pretty easy to follow along there as far as that resolution goes. And then, oh, excuse me, at the bottom of the resolution, then you have some of the unappropriated reserves down here. So that's basically, you're right, everything extra that the city is not authorized to be spending this year. Most of those are, capital replacement reserves, improvement reserves, a lot of the other reserves that we talk about. So that's how that kind of works as far as the resolution goes. The important numbers here is obviously this $33 million here. All of those numbers add up to that. I just checked them again about a half an hour ago, just to make sure, because I wake up in the middle of the night thinking those don't foot. And that also adds up to this number up here at the beginning of the ordinance or the resolution.
does that also add up to what's in our budget, our published budget?
It does. It does. Yep.
It's magic.
It is magic. And then the last thing that you're adopting is the tax rate of 2.6417 dollars per thousand. So those two things.
Whether, and that's the same as last year.
And that's the same as last year, same as
Yeah.
it's been quite a while.
That's the maximum allowed.
That's the maximum allowed, correct?
All right, let's talk about reducing that next year. What do you think?
No. Not until we
Okay.
get some of our
We'll spend
key
it
projects done.
All right. that's-
community outreach.
All right. Public comment on this? Okay. I will close the public hearing. Council discussion, any? Should we say how great Joe is? This is the time.
Joe, you're great.
Oh, thank you.
Budget committee, thank you. I mean.
Yep.
you know,
Yep, a
people
lot
put
of great folks put a lot of time into this process, so big thanks to them and staff, of course.
I don't think there's anybody on city staff that works inside this building that wasn't in on it at some point, right?
Yeah.
Been a little bit.
Yeah, and thank you to Joe, of course, for all his work. And you're right, Mayor, a lot of staff work that goes into a budget. It's sort of anticlimactic when we get to this point, here it is, the budget hearing. But for members of the public, we had a very long budget committee meeting just last month to review all the numbers. All the department heads presented their budgets. A lot of great questions from the budget committee. Do want to thank Budget Committee Chair Connolly for running that meeting. She did a great job. And just appreciate the council's scrutiny and all their great questions on the spending plan. $33 million.
It's hundreds, I would say over 200 for sure, hundreds of hours of person hours would put into this.
Yeah.
So
You feel like most of the agencies, staff starts working on budget right around the end of the year, holiday break, that sort of a thing. Those initial numbers come together and then the
Yep.
negotiations take place. And then the fist fights take place and then the budget is settled.
Right.
By arbitration and by the referee in the middle of the ring, that would
Yep.
be you. You got a striped shirt, I hope. And then this comes together. It's a long tasking process and I've been through it many times and I appreciate the uniqueness and neatness of this budget.
And they
all
align
out
with
there for
council
everybody to
goals. They align with council
Yeah.
goals.
Yeah, and I as I've said in the past, I really like the budget book this year. I think it was great.
Good, thank you.
Okay.
And I think it's worth saying, at least publicly, again, that, you know, our reserve 17 million, which is even more than our, you know, appropriations for the year, those reserves have two functions. One is to get us better loan and bond ratings, to be better stewards of our finances. And second, a lot of that money will be going into some major projects in the next few years, and that number will drop. So
Significantly.
it's a savings account at the moment. I think it's just, if somebody glanced at it, it looks a little odd, but always worth reiterating.
It's always a lot better to save up some money. So then when you go out to manage huge projects, you don't have to borrow at all. You don't have to go to the taxpayers.
Yeah, and it's also good that these are in black and not red.
Yes.
Yes, yep, for sure.
All right.
And we also have reserves in case things go pear-shaped.
Yep.
Too much British OPB,
Yeah.
pear-shaped.
Okay.
On the nose.
Probably can entertain a motion.
I move to approve resolution 2024-16.
I second.
All right, we have motion and a second. Any last discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Need dissension? Nope. That's it. Let's spend the money
Okay.
wisely
Oh, of course, always.
after July 1.
After July 1, yep.
Or on July 1 and after. I should.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right.
You.
We're gonna move on to other business. Other business, this is really fun.
Yeah.
So, Urban Growth Boundary Steering Committee appointments, and it says Preden on there, that's me. We had to make, some very, very tough decisions for the Urban Growth Boundary Steering Committee appointments. I think 24 people applied, 21 on time. I think we had 3 late, something like that, very close. We had to make a determination right away of who to interview and who not to interview. We got it down to 13, and we were supposed to appoint 6 out of 13. I will tell you that we couldn't do that, and we decided to appoint 8 out of 13 of the people we interviewed. And that's a bit of a surprise, but that was just, frankly, I'll say it was kind of my idea, and I was going to run with that. So that's what we've done. We're going to appoint everybody who's going to be on the Urban Growth Boundary Steering Committee tonight, except for a farm interest. We haven't identified who that correct person will be yet, but that'll be somebody from the community that will represent the farm industry. And that should be fairly easy to do. I think we have plenty of people out there to choose from. We just haven't found the right one yet. First thing we have to do is talk about city council members. We had a very short discussion about having them be people that are going to for sure be carried over into next year. And I want to be on the UGB steering committee anyway, so I fit both those criteria. So I will be one. Gary was the other person that we were talking about, but he feels like that Jennifer would be more apt to be on the committee, and if for some reason she's not with us next year, if she's not reelected, then he will take over. And did you say you were going to go to the meetings anyway?
I will attend the meetings,
I don't.
up to the time that, we know what the situation is.
Do we have a problem with 3 council members in the same
Oh.
room? Yeah,
Public meeting.
I think you might just have to do it as homework,
I could.
or just sit in the back.
Or is it gonna be zoomed?
Read the minutes.
You're always welcome to watch.
Right, I would
We
not
have
be
webinar
participating, I would
But it does, it does present some quorum issues, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I could watch it.
I mean, it is a public meeting that will be advertised, but it's not advertised as a city council meeting.
we'll just have to make sure we
I'll
do it
look through the
correctly.
door.
We have to be very transparent.
Right.
Right.
I mean,
I've learned something today.
let's talk about how that could work, but,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
the plan would be, I'm pretty confident that, Counselor Letts will be sitting here next year.
Me too.
And, so I don't feel like we're taking a great risk, but in order to remove any question of that, and I'm comfortable with being on the UGB, but I think that, she's more suited to it. I really do. Skill set, and that's what we want. And I also like the idea that we have equal representation on the council.
There you go.
So do we need to vote on it or move or anything about it or? not?
No,
Well,
I mean, I think everybody's okay with that?
I am.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, great. That's just a head nod.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've determined that. So I am going to move on. I appoint for the duration of the Urban Growth Boundary Steering Committee's work, city councilors or Mayor Michael Preeden and Councilor Jennifer Letts to be on the UGB committee. I also appoint planning commissioners Art Blumenkron and Rick Retzman. For a forest interest, I appoint Ian Reed, USFS Forest Ranger. For UGB study area landowners, I appoint John Tehan and Bill Willits. And then instead of 4 at-large, we're doing 6 at-large. So the first person I will appoint is in the room, Abhi Chaudhry. Did I say that right? Please tell me how to say it so I know. Abhi. Chaudhry. Okay. I also appoint Anna Rasmussen, and those are 2 people that were in the Civic Leadership Academy. So congratulations to those 2 people. The other 4 are Morgan Greenwood, Susan Hollenberg, Therese Kohlerer, and Brian Metolius.
And I think it's pronounced Rasmussen.
Okay, Rasmussen. So there you go. Congratulations to you guys. So looking forward to working with you again. That's it. The next thing up on other business is staff comments. And
Yep.
it's all yours.
Okay.
I know to stay out of your arena now. No, I'm just
Thank you,
kidding.
Mayor. I'm going to be doing the staff updates. I'm going to start with a request for supporting a letter of support for some funding for Regional Transportation Safety Coordinator for COIC. This is kind of something that came up, I think it was Monday. So not a lot of time to kind of process this and get on the agenda, but they did ask the executive committee of COAC and then ask for each city to send a letter of support for COIC to get a transportation safety coordinator to basically develop public communications around and public outreach around traffic safety, transportation safety, crashes, awareness, and things like that. And I think this is dedicated funding for these type of funding opportunities for those purposes.
So we're not taking money away from the roads.
Or snow plowing and things like that.
Yeah, given the situation ODOT's in, it's kind of like,
Mhm.
shouldn't we be spending all our money? But it's
And does
not
it cost us any money in support, or is this in support of just them getting their funding and for creating this position?
It's just COIC trying to get letters of support for them to receive funding. And so they've asked all the different jurisdictions in Central Oregon for letters.
Does anybody need more information on that? Gary?
No whatsoever. I read it. It looks fine to me.
Okay,
Great. Thank you.
yeah.
Okay.
Am I gonna sign that
Yes.
tonight? Okay.
I think they wanted it tonight, so.
Yeah, but it actually doesn't have to be sent until Friday.
Okay.
But they wanted it today, so they'd have it all together to send on Friday.
Sorry, Rebecca's gonna have to work late to get it to him, I guess. Okay, good.
You have a pen, right?
I
Okay.
have a pen.
I'm gonna try not to lose my voice like everyone else. I feel like my voice is gone. I was talking to 3rd graders yesterday that probably did it, which was a lot of fun. We have 2 more classes coming tomorrow, just from across the street. So a chance to learn a little bit about what their city does, take a tour. The mayor did a great job bringing out the big scissors and the gavel, and
It was fun. And we
Great
get to do it again tomorrow. For
I
2
used
more
it as
classes.
an opportunity for public engagement to ask the 3rd graders what they would like to see at the Northwest Park. So got some great ideas, some classics, stick with monkey bars to, a giant sand pit, all sorts of fun ideas, pool. So, had to
big
explain the
snow hill.
constraints to them a little bit.
A big snow hill,
Yeah, and Big Snow Hill.
but that was my idea,
was-
not the kid. I like to sled, come on.
Your next meeting is June 26th, pretty full agenda on that one. And then July 10th, looking like the tourist commercial tax amendment, we do have the work session on that first on the 26th. And then reminder that July 24th is your summer break, so no meeting that week. So Carrie's been sending out information about elections, some conversation about that tonight, actually. But the filing period to run for city council opened on June 5th and runs until August 27th. So here's your chance, community, for the next election for city council. Part of our engagement on trying to get public input on things like art. On the Roundabout Art, we did put out a survey. I think we had over 1,000 responses on that survey. So that was actually something we pushed to the newsletter and sent out directly through Constant Contact and Facebook. And the results are in, and Western Heritage and Culture received the most votes, about 35%. Or almost 400 votes. The next was Natural Surroundings at about 25%.
So we could do the party bus that we discussed.
Yeah. You could, yeah, a bold jumping, yep. It would be Western Heritage. Carrie's also starting meetings with a committee to kind of advise on that process. They're holding their first meeting next week, I think. We're also working on scheduling that next meeting with our community partners on the homelessness council goal to develop a community supported plan. So we have our invite list, we have our agenda drafted. We're looking at a date in early July for that next meeting. That'll be the second meeting. We have a couple more that are planned. I think I gave you an update last month about seeking facilitation services as we approach the community and having more of a community roundtable. This next meeting is going to be engaging with our nonprofit partners and our other community partners that do work out here in Sisters Country with the homeless, and as well as with our agency partners like the Forest Service and DCSO. So we're kind of taking this incremental approach, kind of build this community supported plan, kind of get information out there to share ideas, and then be prepared for the community conversation. The rodeo parade was a lot of fun. One thing that, so everything went smooth with the roundabout and the diversion of traffic. There was no pooper scooper, so our crews are working on sweeping all that up. But we'll make sure they remember the pooper scooper next year. All right, on to finance. Our online licensing platform has already generated payments from, I think, over 30 businesses. So already about 30% of our revenue is coming on the online platform. So another e-government improvement that we're making in finance. And then as part of that experience yesterday and tomorrow, finance was, Joe was a big part of doing the tour of City Hall and being a part of that experience. So I know a lot of staff worked on that too, like Julie at the front desk and stuff. So we love that. We'd love to have more folks come and take tours and engage with their government. And then transitioning over to Public Works, but also some HR news. We have a new employee who I think was out on the road today. So we have a new Public Works utility worker. His name's Brett Taylor, and he started this week. So he's, doing the shadowing and stuff, but he comes with a lot of experience. I think he worked in Public Works for a municipality in Tennessee. Is that right? Yeah, Tennessee. And then he was with the Tollgate Property Owners Association too, doing utility work. So local, I think he'll get up to speed pretty fast. It's been a year as far as I know that we've been trying to fill this position. So I think the crew is happy to have that position filled again to help out, especially as we get into the busy season. So we got a lot of events coming up, as you know. We've already had quite a few, and so we're already working on the quilt show planning. A number of other events coming up this month. Of course, the farmers market is off and running. I think the grand opening sort of event for the makers is at the end of the month. I think June 28th. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. We have the Barn Duster bike ride, First Street Park. That's where it kicks off on the 15th. Our summer solstice walk, Labyrinth, on the 20th of June. The Big Pondaroo is at Village Green this year, and that's June 28th through the 30th. So continued fun all summer long in town. So that's just in June, the different events happening. Oh, there's a ham radio field day too at Creekside. So Creekside's getting some love for events.
They climb one of the big pondos and stick the antenna up at the top.
Ooh, okay, well,
That's all you
but
need
they
to
do
know.
it safely. I don't remember seeing that in the permit. Let's see, some other updates from Public Works. The overlay project's done. We'd love to see pavement getting put down on the ground. So that work is already complete, which is great, right? It's getting all the paving done before we get the busy season, all the events. So that's really helping keep our pavement condition at a good level. Actually filled out a survey for the LOC. They're looking at getting input from cities on street conditions across the state, given that the state's going to be looking at transportation, funding. And as much as I would like to say, we need lots more, which we always could, of course, and especially for new projects, but in terms of our pavement condition, we've done a pretty good job here, having a PCI of, I think it's at 81, which I think I explained.
Does that include Cascade though, which is an ODOT street?
And Cascade is ODOT, which we have the unfortunate news that there's going to be no funding for any level of maintenance for the next several years. And so this is part of that process that they're going through, doing this road show. I think they're not coming to Central Oregon until September, but they're engaging with communities around the state to talk about the transportation woes. They're about $1.8 billion short on just operations. So snow plowing, fixing roads, not new roads, but all that. And so I don't think there's going to be a dime spent in Central Oregon unless things change.
Yeah, I've heard that pothole maintenance only on on streets with the speed limit above 50.
And they can lower the speed limit if they can't get to it too. So one of the questions that we may have council at some point, if the outlook doesn't look good for the next 5 years, is do we actually get in and do a grind and lift of Cascade to get some pavement on there? We're not there yet, but that's something that we might have to think about.
If they'll give us the road, we'll do it.
Careful what you ask for on
Yeah.
jurisdiction transfers that heavily used. Speaking of other projects, McKinney Butte Corridor Safety Project. So we're going out to bid on the 18th, so next week, and then bids will be due on the 9th of July. So the target for this is to get the bids in and get substantial completion done by Labor Day, which of course trying to hit before school starts out there. So moving gangbusters on that to try to get this work done in the summer. West Side Pump Station design and flow monitoring already started, so you guys just approved that contract, I think last meeting and the meeting before, to get that going on with engineering, to size that station. So they'll be working for the next couple weeks on that work. And then if you might have seen, if you drove by on the highways going east, they're working on the design for the new irrigation pivot at the Lazy Z. So we're trying to move ahead on that. Again, another big part of our master plan is those improvements at Lazy Z, and this is the first one that like operationally just helps out a lot. You see it now, like the sprinklers are going, right? But being able to get that pivot in will really help save time and costs. And then I think you've heard, East Portal, we're still at 90% design. And then I think the Public Works Advisory Board reviewed the plans this week, yesterday, right? So we hope to get that in front of council the end of the month, possibly put that on the agenda. So another reason that night's going to be pretty big. And then finally, ODOT has these small city allotment grants. I think the city has been successful in getting these grants in the past. I think they have 5 million that's available for small communities under 5,000 people. So we applied for a $250,000 grant for the Barclay Drive improvements. There's a good synergy there with ODOT and safe routes and things like that. So we'll see if we get some funding to help with that project. All right, development services. So we got the formation of the steering committee. Thank you, council. Just a quick note on that. Great applications. I mean, over 20 applications for a committee, a lot of engagement, just a lot of, I'm not even sure how the interview committee came to their decision because it was tough. A lot of great qualifications on there, a lot of engagement on the UGB, which is great. That's going to really help us, roll now into our community outreach with this project. This summer provides opportunities for tabling at community events, getting things up around town, starting community conversations with smaller groups. So some of those folks that weren't appointed to the steering committee. It's a great opportunity to have these community conversations in these small groups to get their input in the project. We'll brief the council on where that's at and some of the data that's been gathered and part of the initial work on the UGB on June 26th. So that's coming up. All right, development code stuff, STRs, we have a hearing coming up at the Planning Commission next week, I think. So those code updates will finally be in front of the Planning Commission. We need to work on getting the public communications out about them again. It's kind of been a little bit of a lag here in initial workshops and conversations, but now we're heading into the adoption process. I think the Nugget actually had an article about it today. And then the tourist commercial zone code amendment application is planned for a workshop with City Council on the 26th. And then we'll have that public hearing on July 10th, pending how the workshop goes on the 26th. And then building hardening is slated for the Planning Commission on July 18th. And then that will come to council after that. All right. An update on the affordable housing and workforce housing grants. There was a neighborhood meeting last Friday, I think Friday afternoon. I think there was, a half dozen to 10 people that were at that meeting. We're trying to then schedule them for June 26th, a workshop to give an update, kind of the feedback they heard, any changes with their site.
What was the outreach for that?
I think I don't know if they canvassed the neighborhood or what, but, there was the Nugget article that, said where the meeting was going to be and what time.
So they didn't come to us and get the so many miles radius thing or anything?
I don't think they did. The community garden's doing that. We have community garden folks.
I could speak to that if you want.
Oh, voice from beyond.
The voice from above.
Yeah.
If you're interested, they did do notice to all the neighbors. They used the 250-foot radius. They also had an advertisement or an article in the Nugget that advertised it. So that's I was surprised they were able to get something in the Nugget like that, an article, so that there was pretty good notice for that.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Scott. Yeah, I couldn't remember if they did.
Was it on TikTok though?
No.
Not yet, but we'll see.
You mean X.
Yeah. And the Dark Skies Committee met this week, so they're continuing to work on the certification application, and then working also on kind of giving us sort of some input and working on the community education and outreach about the new lighting ordinance and how we roll that out, different suggestions and recommendations on kind of we get that out to the community, but also maybe programs to really promote that and support people, becoming Dark Skies compliant. So that's work that's continuing to happen kind of in the background. We got the newest Deschutes County Building Services report. I think it showed Sisters again had another like 6 permits pulled for new house permits. So things are steady. It's mostly Woodlands and Sunset Meadows. I think all the permits coming in right now are for those. So they continue to build there, despite the market being a little bit slower. We're pulling permits. So, and that's it. My voice did last. All right. Any questions? I guess one last thing. Sorry. I didn't get a chance to really say much during the workshop, but how impressive is that in all the things that the council said and the dialogue there. We're really fortunate to have such talent to be able to pull on their own, pull that report together, do all that research. It's quite impressive. And honestly, like that's half the work on that council goal, if not more. So we have a roadmap. And things that we can easily put into place, things that we can kind of work towards. I think a workshop with council as we kind of review that and kind of put a plan together and how we implement some of those things is a great idea. But yeah, super impressed and thankful for all their work. So yeah, just wanted to make sure that I had a chance to say that because it's great stuff. All right, any questions?
No, I think we're good.
All right, thank you.
All right. On to mayor, councilor business.
So I'm going to tag on to what Jordan just said. To what I said earlier in today's meeting, I would like us to consider having a workshop to follow up on that what the Sisters CLA did. And I don't know how that, I don't know, we just do a head nod and then staff makes it happen, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I don't know, I think the biggest discussion is gonna be where does it fit in with all the other stuff we're doing? Obviously, we're taking one meeting off in July, so I worry about our bandwidth. I don't think it would happen until August at the earliest,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah, so, the council goal is create and implement a communication plan, right? So, we need to do work on bringing that goal to an actual, like, here's the plan, here's what we're doing. And I think what we received with the report, the suggestions, is gonna feed into that plan. And so maybe there's a workshop to discuss the plan, some of the things that we've talked about implementing, like the coffee with the counselor and city manager and things like that could be a part of that. We can get rolling on those things and start scheduling things and that like that now, but I think because this is a council goal, this year we're gonna have a workshop and then, you'll see here's our communications plan and it will include things that we heard, and saw in the report.
Well,
Do you feel like it's pretty important to let you germinate some stuff and boil some of this information down?
Yeah, I mean, it also gives us an opportunity to actually execute on some of these things right away. So we can report out to you like, hey, we upped our engagement, we got our Instagram rolling, we hired a photographer and we started creating videos for wastewater.
You hired a photographer, I don't know.
I'm getting ambitious here, but
Yeah.
suggestions like, YouTube and things like that. I've had great success with like trying to explain sewer project stuff by hiring somebody to kind of do these videos and things because it does get kind of wonky or whatever. It's not as fun, but I do appreciate that.
Where does it go?
Yeah,
This is where it goes.
So
Let's follow it to its final destination.
No cartoon character.
Well, I suggested to Jordan, the next third grade group they go out to the wastewater treatment plant.
oh, that would be fun.
See where it all goes.
But I'm actually glad to hear you say that because I think that it would be nice to workshop some of the bigger stuff and those sorts of things. But I also think some of the low hanging fruit has been so aptly put.
Yeah, get it going.
Should be going and going right now. And I think partially because it sends, I think, the right message to the folks that worked on this, that we heard
Yes.
them and we're listening and we're doing the things we can quickly do and that we're taking seriously the others.
Yeah.
I mean, we've invited people to our coffee time now, so let's see what happens,
At least gotta
I
schedule
thought
that.
Brewskis with Garskis.
Thank you.
Okay.
And I think I had one other thing, but I'll have to get back to it because I can't remember at this moment.
Okay, Gary, you got anything?
Just a little quick, the Urban Forestry Board met the other day, and a couple of things that have kind of started really to gel, and especially in relationship to the East Portal. That plan is now up to 90%. The Forestry Board looked at the tree removal map, and we're actually, I think, pretty complimentary to the work that's been done by the engineers and by Paul and his team to remove as few significant trees as possible. Some will have to come out just because of the swing radius of the intercity bus. They will have to be able to use that location.
As usual, we're swerving around a lot of trees.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the only place where I'm going down a road and all of a sudden I gotta go like this because there's a tree.
Right, and so and also the multipurpose path, even though it showed one on the drawing, that will be engineered and put in again around the trees, that sort of a thing.
There are some trees that are diseased that they're
Oh,
gonna
yeah,
take out.
oh, yes, and
So-
they're trying really hard to target the less desirable trees that are in their smaller diameter and or junipers.
Yeah.
And also, one of the things that we're working right now with CET is on the bus shelter designs to try to get them to do smaller bus shelters, more of them, so they can interdisperse them in the trees rather than have to take the trees up and put in a bus shelter.
Nice.
And then they
Hard to
also
argue against
reviewed, staff has been working on a heritage tree nomination form. They reviewed that and recommended it to go to city council. We'll see it in a workshop, I think, in July. And it's basically an individual can nominate a tree on their property as a heritage tree. There's a formal process. They go through, and then there will be a legal document that follows that tree as the property is sold, like any kind of a lien that will be in there or a condition of sale. So that's been to lawyers. It's a several page document. And the idea is to be able to not only nominate city trees as heritage trees, but also trees on private property, because some people have asked for that. And then with the mapping software that they're working on in Public Works, that will show where all the trees are within the community and those sorts of things. And their condition, they'll be able to also mark the heritage trees, so they'll be located that way.
So you can't nominate a tree on somebody else's property.
No, probably not. The lawyers would just have a day with it.
And the good news is mortality on trees seem to be decreasing a little bit this year. You know, we had to remove some old growth significant trees that had disease. And so we're holding our breath and hoping that we've turned the corner on some of those. And lastly, Dave Moyer, group wants to have a tree planted somewhere in the vicinity of the fire station in honor of Dave Moyer. And Pat Burke's gonna talk to folks at the fire station. I don't know if there's room to put a ponderosa over there. So it was suggested, by Paul and others, that we might look at a place in Village Green Park instead, right across from the firehouse. Yeah. But they think it's important to honor what he's done for both the city and the fire department. And, I know the fire department's looking to do something as well, so it might even be some kind of a joint effort. But that's kind of where we, left off. A lot done in an hour, to be honest with you, so.
Okay. Jennifer.
Many moons ago, I was invited to be the elected representative on Deschutes National Forest, Ochoco National Forest, and Crooked River Grasslands Resource Advisory Committee. And then a couple months ago, they said, okay, we're getting the committee together. And I said, okay, what was this again? Because it was literally well over a year ago when I was invited, but you know, some things take a while to get going. We had our first meeting, in Bend a few weeks ago, finally. And this is, basically, how to, advertise and grant funding, based on I'm gonna get this wrong, I wrote it down, the Secure Rural Schools Act. It is Title II money, which are projects on federal lands. And ultimately, there will be funding available to organizations or entities that are doing projects on federal lands, probably more in the recreation field. But I sit on that committee as in the elected seat for the region, not.
So a homeless
sisters.
camp?
Managed.
Well, recreation, I don't know how much recreating might be going on, but, but partially it is to, you know, just be part of that process and part of that grant process, but also it's to get the word out on the funds that will be coming up, and there will be a request for proposals coming up on that soon. So when I know more, I will share that with you and beyond.
And Ian, maybe.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm hope Ian would know, but, okay, I attended, and I think we all did, the farmer's market. First farmer's market, which.
Everybody was there.
exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody was
Some
was
point or
there.
another, yeah.
You were working
I
a
was
little, volunteering.
volunteering, yes.
So yeah, that was great. It was great to see them expanded. It was great to see the First Street building open and being utilized, initially until they get their full grand opening. Lots of opportunities there to maybe grow that, help that organization grow that. So, I went to this, Sisters Quilt Show kickoff, event.
I was gonna go to
and,
that, but I didn't make it.
I represented.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
But again, just an amazing team of volunteers and creatives, obviously, that put that together every year. And, I'm sure it's gonna be yet another amazing year, so.
They should move that up a week and not have it during rodeo week, though. That was
Oh,
the
yeah.
big,
Yeah.
that was the big issue with that one.
Yeah, well, I
It was locals night, right? It was Thursday, it was that Thursday, right? Or was it no,
Something.
Tuesday?
I don't know. I dragged my son, because I told him there'd be cookies and, but also as a subtle reminder is that there are no, to my knowledge, entities that provide, any sort of sewing or sewing lessons to kids in Sisters, which is a huge missed opportunity in,
In quilt country.
quilt country. So
We
just,
could make a condition on the makers.
yeah. Well, we
side.
could make it a condition on the quilt show permit too.
Yeah, that's.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Think ahead.
Or not, I'm just, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
That would
But
be-
that was nice. It was
That would
nice
be
to,
so mean.
just trying to get the next generation.
All stitched up.
So say you.
Attended the superintendent's coffee and, just, yeah, the elementary school is moving along, almost ready. And everybody's excited about that. I think, there's talk about, I don't think it was finalized, but there's talk about trying to have one-stop dropping for, school buses. So instead of the school bus going from school to school to school, maybe dropping all the kids off at the elementary school since it's right in the middle, and then the middle and high school kids can easily walk to their destination.
That's the second time he's talked about that. So I
Yeah.
think he's really trying.
Yeah, I think,
That would be great.
it seems very
Good for the
logical.
environment.
I think that will be, quite the rodeo, the first week of school, but, it's an exciting problem to have. So,
It'll be interesting to see how all that works in the.
yeah.
You're talking to the person who worked in schools for years. I'm thinking,
Maybe they don't, maybe they suspended for bad weather and they
I'm just
do
saying that-
drop them off at.
that's where you're gonna get the push from the parents. I think right now, everybody's gonna think it's a great idea, but the minute the weather goes bad, I think it's gonna be a different issue, at least for the middle school kids.
But it's
Well,
right
those
next door.
Buildings are so close anyway. I mean,
Yeah, but they're
it's
across
not
the street.
far.
They're
No,
across.
the middle school's right next to the elementary school. The high schoolers have to cross the street.
Yeah, and they don't ride the bus
That's right.
as much,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. And
Less
maybe they'll wear a jacket.
That might work. Yeah, maybe we'll wear a jacket for a change.
But I mean, even for the bus, it just seems like such a short distance.
It's a lot of fuel to move from one building to the next.
Well, then and then you're gonna have all the people that are driving and dropping their kids off, and then you're having buses
Congestion.
get in and out and in and out and in and out of parking lots that are
It's
super
amazing
close
how
to
many
each other.
people drive their kids to school every day.
So,
I don't think I ever got driven to school.
um,
That's because I'm.
and I did, take a little bit of opportunity to kind of plant the seed with Kurt being a large water user, and, we're trying to, work as a community and a region and on our water usage. They do have a well for their fields at those locations, though the buildings themselves are on city water. And obviously this building is on city water, so I kind of, open that door for that conversation of, maybe there's some opportunities there for some conservation
When they get
projects.
their new water bill, they'll be thinking
Yeah.
about it.
I attended the Parks Board meeting on Gary's behalf because he was out of
Thank you.
town,
I
so.
appreciate you being there.
Yeah, that was basically the presentation Jennifer Holland from Parks and Rec gave us a month ago. And so got to see that again. And everybody's pretty excited about that. And I think that was, just a update on the community garden folks wanting to have their meeting on June 29th at the library. I think is where that landed. And they voted on the or kind of told me voted on the SDC change in level of service, approved everything they worked on. And then also attended the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee for Deschutes County, where they had a presentation on the city of Bend's relationship with Bird Bikes, which is
Rental bike.
e-bike rental bike, yeah. Which was really interesting to learn because it's nice to have other communities be the early adopter and let them go through all of the headaches. So they have learned lessons, that
You
they
see
have
them in real random
implemented.
spots sometimes, though, like under an overpass.
Yeah.
Or in the river.
Yeah.
I haven't seen them in the river.
Hucked-
Have you?
Hucked off of,
No, but I've seen them elsewhere in the river. They have them in Boise, and I have seen one in the Boise River.
yeah.
Oh,
Same
boy.
company.
So yeah, so they've learned some lessons on how to manage that relationship with that company better. I don't, which, I think leads to, just reminded me that we as a city need to, I think, be proactive. We're dangerously close to just now being reactive to the growth in electric bikes and, does our code and everything stand, can we enforce this, that, and the other thing? Obviously, there's a very blurred line of what's street legal and what isn't anymore. So something that I think we should be looking into, and also just maybe even, on the good side, charging opportunities or places, better bike parking in the city.
We generally default to law enforcement to figure it out first, and I don't know why we do that.
Well, yeah, and that's been a,
Right? I mean, that's what we do, right? Well, I'll wait until the cops figure out what's legal and what's not, and then we just kind of glam onto it.
Well, and I think that I've seen a significant increase, not in the pedal assist bikes, you see them all over town, but it's in the throttle bikes, the people that are sitting on them and not moving their legs, and they got a throttle, and they're basically an electric motorcycle, as far as I'm
Just
concerned.
a screaming down the road.
Yeah, they will easily do over 30 miles an hour.
with no helmet on the left side of the road.
Yes. So it's something we may have to try to get ahead of.
So I remembered my other thing.
Oh, good.
Is it okay, Mayor?
Let's wait.
Is-
let
are you
Jennifer
done,
finish and-
Jennifer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Okay,
Thank you.
go ahead.
So it was about the community garden. So I invited some people to take a tour with one of the people that runs the community garden. And then I today talked with them about their impressions. And they brought up some good points. So one was because all of the different boxes that each person who is a gardener owns can create their own means for keeping pests away and reducing the sunlight. So there'll be PVC piping and, different kind of netting, and visually, it's just not attractive.
Yep.
Now, there's been other cities that have, community gardens, but they kind of must have some kind of regulation or something, because each bin for their gardens look similar as far as construction. And so it makes it look nicer. The pathways are nicer, everything's maintained a little better. And I think as a city, I think we want to be careful about promoting something that's not very regulated and might be a little, I don't know, dysfunctional looking. I mean, I think it's wonderful what they do. I think it's wonderful to have a community garden, but I also think that we might want to be sure that they have some plans for making sure that it is going to be attractive.
I've had some discussions with them in relationship to the Parks Board on that topic, including suggesting that they look at stock tanks and some of the things that you see around town. So there's a uniformity, and they can have two different heights, so people in a wheelchair can use one and people stand up. I have concern too, having toured the garden many times up Barkley, that is, it's not an eyesore, that's not the right word.
Yeah.
But it is if it's going to be in the back of a city park, it should not be the negative focal point of that city park. And we're gonna have to deal with that. I don't know what the answer is. I don't have it. But it may be one of the conditions of approval is that they're gonna have to make some decisions on how they're going to do that, with the understanding that, it's gonna have to come by somebody at the city for some level of approval. So.
Well, and, I'll just be honest, I think that we may have to come to a stark reality decision that if they don't have everything in place by time they need everything in place, that they may have to take a year off, or if they don't, because it's not all on us, it's,
Well-
the 50-50 kind of thing, that we're talking about, and it has to win for everybody, right? So-
Yes, it does. And there's a cost involved, and this group has operated fairly low level costs. And what's gonna go on in Clemens, if it goes there, is going to be a significant investment on their part, and the question becomes, what part of that investment is the city's in order to control what it looks like, and do we want to make an investment as a city?
Well,
So those are all questions that I don't have an answer to, that we're gonna have a discussion on. And that'll be a workshop at some point, and we'll run that into the ground in a workshop, no pun intended. We'll see what grows out of it, no pun
As long as
intended.
you don't burn.
And-
Oh, I think you intended that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, there will be another workshop opportunity. I mean, they're gathering the public input, having the neighborhood meeting. We need to get that sort of input first to see if this is even feasible there from a public acceptance, sort of embracing standpoint. There will be, yeah, you're exactly right. The council will have some decisions because we'll have to have an agreement with this group. And one thing, and just to plant a seed in your mind is like, what would a garden look like if it was the cities, right? If we built and operated a garden, what would it look like? What do you want to see, right? Versus what can this group, which really doesn't have a lot of money in the bank, is completely dependent upon volunteers, what can they actually do?
Right.
So I think part of that conversation as part of this agreement is, what are they asking the city to do to meet those sort of standards versus what can they actually do? And what are kind of requirements you might put on them, which they can
Yep.
actually do or not do, right?
And that's been my position with them as well, and I've been very upfront in talking with the group, so, as say, this is my view as a city council. The other city council will have a lot to say about this when the time comes, but you need to think about it and be ready to answer the question, because I'm gonna ask it to you in front of the other members of the city council.
I was
I'm sure they're gonna
contacted
have
by somebody surrounding Cliff Cummins Park, and they said, we got asked this before, and we said, no. Why are we being targeted again when we've already said we do not want it there?
Yep.
And I said, I had not realized that there'd been a formal ask or anything like that. And they said, well, I remember signing a petition that said, no, we don't want this here. And now you're trying to push it on us again. And I said, no, we are not trying to do anything.
No.
Okay.
I'm urging caution on the whole thing. That's my position for you folks. Obviously, I'm one of 5, but I'm urging caution, and I have a lot of questions and a lot of concerns, especially should we have another housing development go up on the vacant property across the street. That becomes the green space that group of people use. So we're gonna have to really think seriously about this and whether the ask is too big. They've got a pretty ambitious garden plan.
So, and additionally, the porta potty. So in the other location, there's development going on, and there's been, with the recent winds, the porta potties have been blown over.
But they would not be one at Clemens. They would utilize the existing facility. There's a bathroom there.
I know, and I'm talking about the other one.
Oh.
Yeah. So the properties near the other location, what's that called? Sunset or
Sun Ranch.
Sun Ranch. That was part of their concern, was that these porta potties would blow over. And then they also were concerned about, there was this like buffer area in the current location where they built up all this dirt to kind of protect them from the wind a little bit, I guess. And the comment was, well, if they're going to do something like that somewhere, that should be landscaped. It should look nice instead of just a pile of dirt with, tumbleweed on it. So those were the 3
It's
comments.
just a rural application being attempted in an urban environment, and it's hard.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay,
Charo.
yeah, Charo has been asked to meet with the federal U.S. Interagency Council on Houselessness. They are coming here a week from Thursday to meet with our coordinated houseless group. I don't exactly know that much about. I guess there's a coalition of agencies that have to deal with houselessness, and this is the coalition of federal agencies. I'm hoping that includes the Forest Service, and that the thing they pointed out in the ask was to talk about China Hat, China Hat Road. So since that's Forest Service, I assume that that's the big thing that they want to talk about. Wondering whether Ian knows about this, wondering whether Jeremy would want to attend if he were aware of it. It might be worth reaching out to them because that will be interesting to see if they're going to pull up some responsibility and resources and suggestions and whatever to help us deal with some of these issues. And China Hat, of course, is the big bugaboo in the room, but it doesn't mean that whatever their feelings are on that wouldn't equate to, well, okay, we have people in the forest and, is there going to be some federal help for them as well? So stay tuned on that. That will be interesting. Doug Riggs, the cocoa lobbyist, did come to our last COAC meeting and executive committee meeting. It was very interesting. He's a good guy. I'm glad that we were able to talk to him. And we are, I guess, the mayor, Melanie Keebler, mentioned the same concerns that I was talking to you about. And he said, yeah, I got it. And so we're definitely coordinating with him and Coco to come to the ODOT meeting in September with the same
Coordinated
voice.
message, yeah.
Yeah, with a coordinated message.
Yeah.
We don't, what I hear from ODOT basically here is we want to be able to use whatever funding there is on roads and safety. And there isn't going to be room for anything else. And so anything that's peeled off by special earmarks for projects is just going to take out.
Like an I-5 bridge.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Portland.
that's kind of in the equation already.
Yeah.
A certain amount is going to
Sure.
be given on that.
Yeah.
So, and, he reiterated, I don't know who it was, I mean, about the potholes and stuff was sort of nothing can be done on any of the other roads until Highway 97 is taken care of. And then it would be Highway 20. And then if there
Then it
was
goes,
any
then
money
there's a
left-
list.
yeah,
there's a
right.
list, yep.
And he says, so, in other words, he said, please don't try and make a big fuss over some individual project or some individual highways or, whatever, and say, oh, well, that's what we really want. I mean, that, the maintenance and upkeep and safety, hopefully we can all drumbeat that has to come first. And then, if we come up with some funding mechanisms that increase the funding that's coming in the future, and it'll take a few years for that, whatever funding mechanism comes up, it'll take a few years before that funding is large enough to be able to then start talking about new projects again.
And the
So,
reason it's important is because if Coco was doing one thing
mhm,
regionally and COAC was doing another thing regionally and we weren't coordinating, it'd be two entities in the same region going for the same money for different things to
Right.
the legislature. And that's the most important thing because ODOT's not getting any money until the legislature says, we're gonna do this or that to come up with this pot, or we're gonna steal money from over here and put it in that pot. And then, so if we didn't coordinate, that
Right.
would be bad. It'd be,
yeah,
it'd be
it's just
horrible.
like, well, if we hear too many voices, we won't consider any voice.
That's right. So,
And I get that. I get that from
It
what
makes-
we hear is.
And it does occasionally work. When I was in Lane County, all of the jurisdictions, districts, counties, the city, we all got together and we made once a year, we would make a trip to Washington DC and lobby as a group.
Mhm.
So you'd have somebody from the county lobbying for something that was gonna happen in the city of Springfield. You'd have somebody from the school district lobbying for something that's gonna happen in the county. Cause everybody saw that as these are the needs. And you'd be surprised how many legislatures that you're the first group we've ever seen that comes in and says, hi, I work for the school district, but I want to be sure that you build that bridge over in the county. so it does work to have a coordinated response.
One of the most important things that ODOT does in this whole region is plow the snow off the pass.
Yeah,
The minute that gets clogged up, nothing's coming over.
that's
No
right.
people, no tourists, no commerce,
Yep.
no trucks,
Services.
everything.
Fuel,
So,
all that fuel comes.
If they
over that
don't,
way.
that's what I think is my number one priority is just, you gotta keep the pass open. Obviously the maintenance, that's
Well, I
That's all in,
consider that.
it's all in the
maintenance.
same,
Yeah,
that's in that same vein.
Yeah,
If your
exactly.
road gets so bad that a bridge goes out or there's potholes that people can't get through, it's the same situation. If they don't keep the roads open, we're all done.
You may see.
4 million cars a year come right through Sisters, so.
I'm
you may
sure
see
there's a lot
start
of
to Use the snow gates on 20.
There's a lot of businesses, Mayor, that probably feel the same way.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's who we represent, right? So.
Yeah.
And Jordan, when you said that ODOT had no money for maintenance, does that include plowing through town or?
They hinted at it this last winter.
Hinted at it. They are, I mean, they're already doing force reductions in anticipation of the budget having a huge decrease, so, or not increase enough. So I would assume that includes positions, low seniority positions that do things like plowing and other road maintenance. I'm sure they will prioritize safety, but these are the conversations that are happening around the state now and will be happening all the way through the legislative session, probably into next.
That's what
winter.
that listening session is gonna be all about though, is, and if we had a mixed message, it would be very bad.
Right.
So I'm glad we saw that there.
Yeah.
We still have a UGB.
I had recommendations about the dark skies from people saying we need to make this a community effort and that we should consider making like prizes for being dark sky compliant, giving stickers that you can put on your car, T-shirts if you're,
I can see the
Um,
stars from my house.
yeah, or, somebody, group that really is interested in it going door to door and saying, did you know, and here is the information, and we have light bulbs, or here's where you can get some, the city will provide you with that kind of thing. And if you can get 10 people to sign up, then you get a reward to make more of a community effort out of it. So that was just a suggestion to think about how to get more people, because that's actually something where you've got a lot of young people that are kind of interested and motivated, and I think it would be fun to be able to utilize them to do that. I received an email from the city that said if I wanted to, did I want to sign up on like an Instagram thing or something? Get the newsletter on some other website, some other? I'll forward it to you.
Yeah,
It was
forward it.
weird. I thought, well, I'm not on Instagram.
Well, and I got one today saying that my Microsoft account had someone signing into it from Russia, so.
Okay.
I
So maybe
think
it
that's,
was
it's it could be our wonderful bunch of people that send us those wonderful little huntress
Phishing.
things we have to go through, seeing if we've been
Okay.
paying attention.
Oh, yeah, it could be phishing too. Could
Yeah.
be real
Okay.
phishing or a test, but.
And the Public Works Advisory Committee was very impressed with the East Portal project. I told them that, that if it was up to the Public Works Advisory Committee to name it, that I was retiring this year. And so, because East Portal wasn't a good thing, and so they could make
right.
a recommendation, but I didn't really get any takers on that. But they just made very few changes, but some of the suggestions they had were very insightful, I thought. So when we get it, hopefully y'all will be as impressed as they were.
Yeah, it's very, very good looking, doesn't it?
It's taken a few different runs at it.
Twists and turns.
Yeah, but I think I forget the count, but there was a lot of trees that have been saved through the kind of
Yep.
process of.
And even there's a lot of trees coming out.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
there
a
will be.
lot of the junipers and stuff, but trying to preserve as many of the good pines.
And one of them brought up, it might have been me, that that every time we talk about, well, we saved all the trees we could, that we also consider, well, where can we plant some trees?
Yep.
Because there are a couple of ugly brown spots in the area that could be improved a little.
You're talking about my yard, aren't you?
I hated to bring it up. Did your next door neighbor tear out a perfectly brand new driveway?
It was already coming apart, so
Oh, okay.
it was a warranty issue.
Oh, interesting. I just saw a beautiful driveway go in, and then a couple months later, they're tearing it out.
Just a neighbor.
I'm done. Thank
Okay.
you.
I could talk about a lot of things, but I think I want to keep it brief. I did want to acknowledge that we have somebody in town who won an Emmy. Have you heard that story? Jared Gatley, a videographer, won a regional Emmy for his work doing the war stories on
Yeah, I did
KTVZ,
see that, yeah.
of which he did
Yeah.
a story of mine.
And those,
So
they're competitive, the regional Emmys.
his region, he beat out all the people in Portland and all the people in Seattle.
Yep.
So good job by him, and I
Wow.
just wanted to acknowledge him, and I just thought,
He's with COTV? Or,
no, he's,
CO Daily?
yeah, he's Central Oregon Daily, but he's also does a lot of independent work as well.
Okay.
And
Not-
you know what? Those things are heavy and they're the same ones they give out. And my daughter has two of them and they're the exact same ones that they give out down in California on the,
At the big events.
at the big events. So
They're all the same, yeah, they're all the
they
same
have a little
size.
sticker on the buzzer. You can't sell this, you have to send it back to us.
I just thought that was really cool that somebody from Sisters got an Emmy
I do
here
too.
in town, so. War stories, veteran stories. All right, that's it. This meeting is over. Now, we're gonna have a URA meeting. Do we need a break?
Like 2 minutes?
Yeah. We'll start in a few minutes.
If it's 3 minutes, I'll fall asleep.